I've spent the last year and a half learning from the top earners in the industry, and now I'm putting my business plan into action. The question is, how will I do it without being a tech genius or having supermodel good looks? Join me and follow along as I learn, put into action, and share my journey. I am Sarah Peterson, and you're listening to MLM Marketing Explosion. I am super crazy excited to be here with Mason Vranes today. And
Thanks for having me.
so I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about his story, but he's a college kid, brand new college kid, just graduated from high school last year, correct?
Yeah.
And super inspiring. He's one of those kids that doesn't say no, he just says how. For example, he's part of a big mastermind right now that was on the pricey side. And again, he didn't say can't happen. He just said how, and he jumped right in. He is an entrepreneur to the T. I'm excited for him to share his story with you. And without that, without further ado, Mason, tell us a little bit how you ended up, deciding that you wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, of course. So my parents, I grew up kind of in an entrepreneur household, which a lot of people do, but my parents, so my mom's an artist. She's one of the top landscape artists in the world. So she paints like vineyards and scenes and stuff. And so my dad does like the managing and the marketing side of that. And so my whole life I just kind of like grew up around my parents, always being home because they're self-employed. Like all my friends, their parents like go to work to 9 to 5 and stuff. And I didn't really understand that because my parents are always home. So that was kind of cool. And though like I grew up just really like I love basketball a lot, and so that was my main focus. I didn't really think about entrepreneurship that much until a few years ago because I had like a lot of injuries and stuff, and I was like wondering what am I going to study in college? Like where's my direction in life even going to go? And so I was thinking like I've always had like a gear to do something prominent or whatever, and so I was thinking either med school or law school or something, and just like looking through that, and people like show me this is like the road for that, and it's like 10 plus years of school and $1,000 in debt and stuff. I was like, that sounds miserable. And so I was kind of like lost in this spot where I didn't know exactly which path I was going to take. And like two and a half or 3 years ago or so, my parents, I don't, if you know who Ty Lopez is, he's
Yeah.
like people either love him or hate him. Like I think he's a great guy and he's good for like beginners and stuff. But my parents took me to a mastermind at his house in LA, and that like at that point I was just open for whatever. I didn't know my direction in life or whatever. And so we went to his house and he kept talking throughout the day about internet marketing, because before that point, I always thought that to start a business or something, you had to create like this brand new Shark Tank kind of product that costs, $1,000 to get capital and just a really hard path and road. And so I kind of like pushed that idea out because I thought it was the more pain than it was even worth it. But learning about like the internet marketing and that kind of world and how you don't even need a product. You can do service-based stuff. You can, drop ship, stuff like that. And so he talked about that, like the entire event. And that kind of shifted the whole way I was thinking. And I went from thinking about the 10-year plus plan with medical school to immediately just pushing out the door. Like that was not even an option anymore. I'm like I felt like this was my calling because first off, all the freedom that comes along with it, I could be the boss of my own life because I was always kind of minded that way. And so when we flew home that night, I had this course too. And so I got started with drop shipping, like a lot of people do at my age. I think it's a great, like that affiliate marketing, like MLMs is amazing, a gateway drug and stuff to get even in started in the game because you don't need any money to get started with. And I was like 16, 17. So I didn't have any cash though. So what I would do is I have this friend where he's like older, but he owns this really good construction company where I'm from in Oregon. And I'm like, hey, can I work for you for a couple of weeks just to get some cash? So what I would do, I would work on foundations of houses and sweep streets and stuff to get startup cash. I got like $200, $300 from hard labor to get started. And so then I said, thank you for that. I had left that job, it was like really part-time. And then I went home and started my Shopify store and then started drop shipping. And with that, like I was able to kind of learn how to market and stuff and how to drive ads and traffic and all that stuff. And even though I understood almost nothing about like how to actually sell online, like I would put the product picture and then the price tag and then the button. That's what most people do. And I expect, people to come and be like, wow, I want to buy that. But obviously it's not how it works. And I understand that now, but it was just like a fun way to get started. And so, yeah. And then I kind of, in high school, I ran that. And then I also did like a print on demand thing with my own branding and stuff, just because I was a really good basketball player in the area. And so people would want to buy my merch. So I sold a ton of sweatshirts and stuff just to people in the area, and like was on the news a bunch of stuff for it. But that was pretty fun. Even though like it wasn't really profitable, like I didn't really break profit on anything, because with my traffic, I would lose a bunch of money and then maybe make a couple sales because it was really bad. And then, so I was slowly, like, just from that $300 I started with, slowly started decreasing. And it was really frustrating actually, because like a year and a half of just trying to make it work, and nothing was even working. And then that's when, like 2 years ago, Russell was at 10X GrowthCon, and I bought the recordings for it, watched it, and then he went on stage to give his pitch. And this was last year. He made the $3 million in 90 minutes. I think before that he made $1 million in 90 minutes. And so it's crazy. But I was watching that, and it's just the way the perfect webinar works and how he sells. My whole, all my beliefs just crashed, and I was just completely sold on funnels and Russell Brunson. And so my parents are entrepreneurs too, as you know. And so we kind of like went into this together, and we bought the Funnel Hacks or Funnel Builder Secrets package, got ClickFunnels, started working really hard on that. And yeah, so taking that point, then I tried to take dropshipping onto there and e-commerce and stuff. And then that's when I actually became profitable, which is really fun. And then so like with basketball, I really wanted to start an info product business because Expert Secrets came out, and like it's way more lucrative than e-commerce, just because the margins are whatever your ad spend is, and then like that's your entire margin. So I was involved with basketball a lot. I did have like a few mental trainers and stuff that were really good at what they do and really prolific, and it helped me out a ton. So I decided to make that into a course to teach other athletes how to mentally be really strong. And therefore the whole idea was to like unlock the zone state inside of you guys to make you perform a lot better. And so like all of last year, I would go on weekly webinars, or even sometimes twice a week, drive an ad set and sell a package. Since they were like high school kids I was selling to, I can only sell like, I think between $300 and $500 is what I typically test out. But I started making a little bit of profit with that, learned how to sell better from a webinar, it was really fun. And then I did that for a while, just trying to make that work. And then go up till this year when I came to Utah for college. I met, so with like the entrepreneur, with that athlete business, I have a business partner. He's like the second ranked runner in the nation. He went to my high school. He's one of my best friends. He's at Stanford now for running, which is incredible. So we kind of have that as like the hook and stuff to help sell it. And it was fun. It was really good. And so, but it wasn't like extremely profitable, because the big problem with that was that the kids don't have money. So we were selling to people without any money, and there's like that second sell where the kids had to sell to their parents. So then come this year, I was just kind of experimenting other stuff and a lot of affiliate stuff as well, plus those webinars. And then I met my business partner here, and we started this agency, which is what I've been working on and hammering ever since. So we have like 6 clients right now. We do all their funnels, all their marketing and stuff. And that's where like the true profits and stuff come from. And like my whole master plan with this, since like the agency work, it's kind of annoying dealing with clients. I'm not a big fan of that part. And it also is a ton of work building out, 6 entire marketing campaigns to make these guys blow up online, because most of them are e-commerce. One of them is this really big software company that's evaluated like 20 million, and they're about to launch. And then another one's like a real estate company, and we just signed one a couple days ago. I kind of think we shouldn't have, because I'm really busy right now, but we actually hired like 3 interns to help us out with the process and stuff, and train them. And so, yeah, it's kind of where I'm at with the agency. My master plan though is the whole point of this is I have like a client in kind of like every different, like in lots of different markets. We have real estate, lead gen, we have 2 e-commerce companies, software as a service company. So we're kind of like all over the place. And my goal is to just become extremely good at marketing to like no matter the circumstance, right? So therefore, when I decide to hang up the shoes with the agency, then whatever I choose to do after that, which I want to kind of become, like Stephen Larson is like kind of like a thought leader kind of guy that like that, which I think is just really fun. I plan to do that eventually, but I really want to master the actual marketing side first, because a lot of people, they read Expert Secrets and they try to make a course, but they don't have any, track record at all to try to help people learn how to make money online. So I want to actually prove it to myself, become really good. Because if you're a really good marketer or a really good salesperson, I think those are, Stephen always says this too, like if the 3 best skills you can ever study is marketing, selling, and closing. And so just by mastering those skills all together, I like money will never be an issue for me. It's more at that point, like a legacy and making myself bigger and better and more impact in the world, right? But first you got to make the cash so you can actually even do that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And so hopefully, yeah, all our funnels for these clients are also doing extremely well. And Steven helped out a lot, but like we kind of figured out like the secret sauce to making it work. And the first time you do it, then the second time is way easier, and the third time is easier, and then it just becomes like clockwork. So that's where we're at right now.
So it turns into science.
Yeah, it's basically science, honestly. A little bit like 80-20. Steven said at Alphamine, it's 80% science, 20% art. So that's good on our parts because we just got to follow the proven frameworks to make it work with a little bit of creativity, but not much. So that's the exciting part.
That's pretty cool. So I got to know, you said that you started way back in high school with, you tried the drop shipping, that turned into selling your own merch, which is so crazy cool. And I think sometimes, well, at least for me, sometimes I look at like the whole big picture and that gets so daunting because it's like, but you kind of started here and scaled it and scaled it and scaled it. So I'm just curious, when you started out, did you have a big picture or was it literally just, well, try this? And then did the merchandising in the very beginning just kind of happen, or were you very calculated and you kind of get what I'm going? Was it super calculated or was it like it just kind of evolved?
Well, like ever since that thing at Ty Lopez's house, I really just became immersed. Like I probably listened to thousands of hours of content. I don't know anyone that's listened as much or learned as much as me in my life, but like I just consumed everything under the sun because I was really dedicated to that goal. Because like I think a really obsessive personality. So when I commit to something, I'm just gonna go hammer it super hard. And so with that dropshipping stuff, I would follow and just like tons of like e-commerce gurus and stuff that were making a lot of money with it. And like so at that point, I was just trying to just make it work with this. Like Steven says, you just gotta look at the next step ahead, not look, not worry about too much about the future. Like every morning I set my goals and stuff, like long-term and short-term and stuff. So I do have that big picture in mind. It's just, you never know what's going to actually happen. I never thought I'd be doing agency, 2 years ago, or whatever. I thought I'd just be selling like AliExpress stuff. So, definitely didn't expect this, but I knew I just wanted to become like a really good marketing entrepreneur and make a ton of money with that. That was kind of like my startup goal. So
you talked about having to bridge. You did do a very unique market because you took an idea and transformed that into the whole mind thing for athletes. You mentioned that you had to bridge, you put it in front of the kids, but then you had to figure out how to bridge it back to the parents. That can be a trade secret, so you don't have to tell it. But how did you do it?
So the way I did, like, first off, I crafted a really good, perfect webinar with the 3 secrets and the one thing. Like, those are really solid. It took me a while to get those nailed down. But then, like, 90% of selling in general, like if you're online or if you're on a webinar or whatever, it's all emotional, which is why you tell stories, why you try to make them feel emotionally compelled. But then like the last, 8% is logical and the last 2% is like scarcity based. And so during the logical phase, which is like after I do the stack, after I do all my, it's like, then I do the closes, which is generally logical. So they can, because like at that point they're sold themselves, but they have to sell themselves. Like they're sold on the thing itself, but they have to sell themselves on it, which is more of a logical thing. And Steven talks about this a lot on his podcast and stuff, and Russell, but during that logical steps, I would walk them through kind of like a success path on how to kind of talk their parents into it. That's what I kind of do. So it releases endorphins and stuff, give them the success path. But yeah, I kind of teach them like because I used to buy tons of programs for basketball and stuff. I'd always been info product based, just learning from all these basketball dudes. And so I would just tell them what I would do personally to talk my parents into it and stuff like that. So then they would just go replicate the same thing.
That is really cool. And without even, it was calculated because it is a science, but on a level without maybe even realizing it, you taught these guys how to be marketers. And
in some sense, right?
That's actually way cool. So I know that you said that you went through ClickFunnels and Russell Brunson and we're learning all that stuff. Were you totally into tech before you got started, or was this something that you learned as you went?
Yeah. So like I've always understood, I'm not I cannot code for my life. I can't do any of that stuff, but I know how to like computers and how to do what I need to do. Right. I can use Google, I can use a Mac. So that's kind of as far as my tech knowledge goes. I cannot, fix an iPhone that's broken by any means. So I don't really know any of that stuff. I just know what I have to know to market, I guess. So yeah.
That's pretty darn cool. In terms of the whole process of creating the offer, creating the program, getting it out to people, what was probably the easiest step in all of that for you?
The easiest step, well, the hardest step for me was driving traffic, but the easiest step was probably just kind of like the message and offer creation itself. I find it pretty natural, I guess. So that's the easy part. The hardest part is for me just to drive traffic, which is why my business partner is awesome, because he is like really, really good at driving traffic for like really cheap cost per click and stuff. So that's where we kind of meet in the middle. I do like all the marketing, he does all the advertising, and so that is also a huge reason why I'm in this right now with him. But yeah, the easiest part is just it's kind of like the funnel and the marketing message itself. It really is just kind of common sense when you break it down. A lot of people overcomplicate it with all these, hacks and stuff and all these things. But something I talk about a lot is like, if your thing isn't working right now and you try to figure out, if you're just like browsing for tricks and hacks and stuff to make it work, that's a very dangerous spot to be in, because it's supposed to work with just the foundations itself. And those hacks are supposed to give you like little extra boosters. But if you're relying on those little boosters to make it actually work, then it's probably not going to work at all. So really all it comes down to is like looking at like .com secrets and expert secrets. It has the framework that you need, and then just following it written, like just following it, I guess. And then I use funnel scripts for my copy and stuff. A lot of people do that as well. And so it just makes it really, I just try to simplify everything as much as possible. And yeah.
I think that's really cool. I think I don't know if you guys listening caught that, but simplify.
Yeah.
And it's
Sure.
that hacks is almost that flavor of the month club, huh?
Yeah.
That's crazy cool. Was there ever a point that you wanted to quit, or was there something that was like, that you had to work through, or has it been pretty straightforward?
Yeah. Well, whenever I get like a sense of doubt, which does happen, obviously, I'm really committed to the path, and I would just look at the alternative. Like if I did quit, what would my life look like? Oh, I'd probably have to go through school a lot and take that normal 9-to-5 route, which is way more scary than just sticking through and making this thing work. Right? For me personally, for me to like lose that freedom to just live like that average life is that's the scariest thing ever to me. And it's just really disappointing to myself. And I just never want to even play with that. So I just suck it up and just keep moving, I guess. So
I think that's awesome. What if you had one piece of advice that you could tell anybody who was just getting started or maybe stuck somewhere in the process? What's your biggest piece of advice?
Probably just get off YouTube, get off the podcast, and just make the first move. I guess a lot of people I know that here, even they ask me like how they just want to know like what I do and how I do it and stuff. And so I'll give them a book or something, or people to follow on YouTube, and then either they never even start watching YouTube, or they do just watch it and they just get stuck in this learning cycle without ever making action. And a lot of people, like, this is kind of common knowledge now in the entrepreneurship world, but without implementation, like, it means nothing. And so a lot of people just, they get stuck because when you guys are learning a bunch and it's like fun, you get this dopamine hit and it's addicting just to learn stuff and it makes you feel good inside. So people don't even make that first step, and just know like the first time you do it, it's probably not going to work. It's probably going to suck. Just know that so you can get that one out of the way and then get the successes later. So that was the biggest thing. Like, it's going to suck at first. There's no way around it pretty much. It's just like, you gotta get that in the mat time, right? You just got to start. So
that is super, super awesome advice. So if you guys didn't catch it at the beginning, Mason Vranes this is your first semester college, right?
Yeah.
If you are not already following him, Mason, tell everybody where to find you.
You can go on Instagram at Mason Vranes, or you can check out my podcast. It's called 1%er Secrets, and you can type my name and probably find it. Or yeah, I just started YouTube, but it's like has like 2 videos on it, so don't go there yet. But yeah, just check out my Instagram. I always promote stuff on there too, and you guys can follow my journey on there. So
that's so cool. And it's Vranes, Vranes, Mason. And this kid, I say kid, I'm not that old. I am that old. I don't know. But this kid is going places. This is going to be like, a Michael, not Michael, when I say Michael, like a Bill Gates, where, he's in his college dorm room creating something awesome and nobody knows it. You guys now know it. Go watch Mason. He is going places. I was going to say grab onto his coat strings and, model what he's doing, because this kid's smart. And I think one of my favorite things with talking to Mason and learning Mason's story and learning more about Mason is that I think at least growing up or seeing my kids, they don't teach the stuff in school. And I think you grow up thinking, well, when I grow up or when I graduate college or when I do that or when I do this. And how are you willing to tell, how old were you, Mason, when you started that first company?
Yeah. So my first company, which I plan to make it like my parent company with all my stuff. It's called MV, and so it's EMVI. It's just my initials spelled out, but it's kind of catchy, so I ran with it. But I was like 16-ish, so I wasn't super young, but it was like in the middle of high school.
That's pretty young. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really impressive. And I think it's even more impressive that you stuck with it when it wasn't always breaking even, because you
Yeah.
knew that it was gonna break even. But I also like that well, number one, you didn't let that stop you, but number two, you didn't stay stuck. You figured out a model to make it work.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I think that's so amazing. As parents, as leaders, you can teach your kids. As kids, you don't need to wait until that magic age or that magic, I'm an
Yeah.
adult or whatever. And oh, Mason, I think that's so crazy cool. Any last words?
Yeah. A lot of people, they don't stick in it long enough to see it happen. Like a lot of people are just so close. There's just that one piece that needs to push them over the edge. And a lot of people just don't learn the game enough before they quit, right? And like, for instance, when I first started that thing when I was 16, I started with $300 and I did run out of money. And so instead of, crap, it's game over, I went back to the construction stuff to get more cash so I can start doing it again. And that happened a couple of times. But like, I think in the book, like Think and Grow Rich, which a lot of people read, it just talks about like that obsession. You just have to have that obsession and to really commit to something to even, make it work. And so if you stick in the game long enough, it's going to happen. Like that's guaranteed. Eventually it will happen. It's just a matter of when. And so the way to shortcut that process is by just learning a ton, but then taking what you learn and implement it. Like every single morning, I'll find some type of content, probably from Russell or Steven, because I think they're the best in the game. And then I'll just find something that I can implement for the day and put that in there, because they always say like every single day you should be giving yourself a raise. And so I try to find what can I do that day to give myself a raise and to make my marketing knowledge and my experience better. And so that's just kind of in the back of my mind. But then like a huge part of it is every night and morning, a lot of billionaires do this. Alex Sharfin, if you guys don't know who that is, he teaches a lot, but like, and so does like John Lee Dumas. But at night, like writing out what you're trying to accomplish so that you can stay focused on that vision. Because whenever I'd struggled the most in this is because my clarity wasn't really there. Like I'd be doing stuff. I'm like, why am I doing this? And so you have to really sit down and just map out what is your plan? Like, what are you trying to do to get clarity on today? And so every single morning I would just write down like, what's my decade goal? Kind of what Alex Sharfin calls like your Super Bowl goal. What is like my 5-year goal? And then my short-term goal, which is like within the next 3 months. And then what am I going to accomplish today? So I like write down those 3 things. And then for today, it's called my highest outcome goal. So what's the highest outcome that I can achieve for today? And I write that down. And then the next thing below that, I'd write down is my most uncomfortable. So like where yesterday was I most uncomfortable? And so I can see where I need growth, because if you're feeling uncomfortable about something, it's because you're just not used to it, or your growth isn't there yet for that. Like, if that makes sense. And so I write down that, and then I write down 3 things, like 3 steps or 5 steps, however much I need to actually achieve the highest outcome goal. And then right below that, that's where I write down like my decade, 5-year, 3-month goal. And so just like starting every morning like that so I know exactly what I'm doing that day to achieve like what the highest outcome is. Therefore, each day you know that you're on track, because the way it works, like your 5-year goal should lead you on a path to your 10-year goal, and your short term, like under a year goal, that should lead you on a path to get your 5-year goal. And then your goal today should be helping you achieve and get to that under your year goal. And so it's all kind of like steps with itself. And if you're constantly just know you're on the path, like you're actually recording it and you're documenting your journey and stuff, then like you're going to hit it, because how could you not? You made the steps possible to even achieve that in the first place. So that's kind of, I start my mornings like that, because I think that's really important. Like your morning routine is the most important part of the day. So my morning routine takes like 2 hours, but it makes the rest of my day 10 times more productive than the average person. So yeah.
I think that was absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much, Mason. I know I'm inspired. um, go throw out your links one more time, because seriously, if you guys don't know who he is, you're gonna wish you'd known him when. So throw them out one more time, Mason.
Yeah, on Instagram, it's at Mason Vranes, MasonVranes. And then if you guys go like on iTunes, you can look up 1%er Secrets or Mason Vranes and find my podcast there. I'm not selling anything with that yet, but it's just more to publish and just to give free value, I guess. And so, yeah, that's where you guys can find me.
Hey, that's awesome. Hey,
Yeah.
thanks so much for your
Thank
time.
you so much. Appreciate it.
Oh, of course. I can't wait to do, I hope you'll let me do a follow-up interview in a couple months, and you can catch us up on what you're doing now.